Good morning, everyone. So I'm going to go ahead and start by reviewing one-step equations before we get into two-step equations. This week is going to be about equations. We're starting a new standard that we had done during the school year, and we're going to be reviewing, especially for Algebra 1, for those of us that are going to end up there, which I hope most of you do. So I'm going to begin with number 1, which is a one-step equation. And pretty much when we talk about equations, we know that this is an equation because there is an equal sign, and that tells you that it is an equation. Now, it is a one-step equation because it does have a plus sign, which means that we're working with addition and subtraction. Now, one of the things that we need to remember whenever we do equations is we always do the opposite. So if we have addition, we do subtraction. And we have subtraction, we do addition. If we have multiplication, we do division, and vice versa. One of the most important things about equations is to remember that the whole goal, the objective of an equation is to solve for that variable. And in order for you to solve for that variable, you must isolate or leave the variable alone, all by itself. So for number 1, we have that variable m, and we're going to leave m by itself. We need to know what number goes here plus 12 that will give me the answer 10. So we're going to go ahead and begin by using our line to divide the equation. This is one of the strategies that I taught you during the year. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Okay, sorry. I'm going to divide. So I'm going to put one side here, one side there, and I taught you to divide your equation to help you out to see both sides of the equation. So plus 12, that means we're going to do minus 12. So this is gone, and whatever you do to one side, you do it to the other. So 10 minus 12 is going to give me negative 2. M is equal to negative 2. And if you notice, you can actually take this answer and plug it into M. So that means that negative 2 plus 12 should give me 10. And that checks, okay, because 12 minus 2 is 10. So the answer is correct. Next one, we're gonna go ahead and leave G by itself. It doesn't matter that G is not on the left side. It could be on the right side or it could be on the left side. It does not matter. You're still gonna be isolating that variable. So I'm gonna start on this side, on this one on the right side. I have minus 9, so I'm gonna do plus 9. This cancels out, and whatever I do to one side, I do it to the other. So plus 9 over here. And different signs you subtract, and my answer here is 7. So G, 7 is equal to G, or G is equal to 7. And I'm going to go ahead and check this. So that means that I'm going to take off the 7 here. Let's see. I'm going to take off the G, I'm sorry. And I'm going to plug in a 7. So that means I have 7 minus 9, which is negative 2. So my answer checks. Correct. Next one. Now, this one involves multiplication. So notice I did one plus, I did one minus. So we had subtraction, we had addition, opposite operation. But now here we have multiplication. How do I know that this is multiplication? Well, whenever you have a number, meaning the coefficient negative 7 in front of a variable, y in this case, that means multiplication. So I'm trying to figure out negative 7 times what gives me negative 91. So I'm going to go ahead and divide opposite. So I'm going to divide by negative 7. -7. So now this cancels. You bring down, whoops, and I forgot one important step, which it helps a lot of students, I know, is to divide your equation. And y, let me go back to y is equal. So -91 divided by a -7 is actually going to give us a +13. And you can go ahead and check. So that means that 13 times -7 should give me -91. And that's correct. Let's go over a little bit of multiplication and division, integer rules. So whenever you divide a negative divided by a negative, you do end up with a positive. And if you multiply a positive 13 times a -7, it's going to be a negative. And one of the strategies that I taught you throughout the year was to use your tic-tac-toe. Remember your tic-tac-toe, but this only works for multiplication and division. This tic-tac-toe strategy will not work for addition and subtraction of integers. Keep that in mind. So remember, your pluses are across, plus, plus, right? And then you have your minus, minus, minus. Everything else is minus. That's how you remember. Remember, you can put it diagonal this way, or you can put your pluses diagonal this way, and everything else, whatever you have left, is always going to be negative. So if I wanted to use this strategy, to remember my rules for integers for multiplication and division, I will go ahead and do negative divided by negative. So here it is, negative divided by a negative equals positive. And there it is, +13. So that's how that works. Now, if I was doing multiplication, which I did to check my answer, I did 13, +13 times a negative. So there's a +13 times a negative, and it gave me a -91. I did -7, so it gave me a -91, and that checks. So this right here, it's something for you guys to use and remember. All right, so last one. This one here is a fraction. Remember, whenever you have a fraction, we're talking about division. And the coefficient of this variable a is actually 1. And we learned that in the past when I've taught you a couple of videos last week. So that means that if I'm working with division, that means that I'm going to be doing multiplication. So opposite of division is multiplication. So I'm going to be multiplying here, multiplying on both sides, right? Whatever you do to one side, you do it to the other. And I multiply by the reciprocal. Remember the reciprocal? There it is. And I'm sure that a lot of you probably got the answer before I even did this, because the nice thing about equations is that sometimes you can figure out the answer without doing all this work. And if you can do that, that's perfect. You can go ahead and just jog it, put in your answer if you get it right away. And of course, my only advice is that if you get the answer right away, it's just to double check. So let's assume I knew that my answer here was 36. Just double check. Now it needs to be a -36, because -36 divided by a +9 is a -4. Okay, so that's one of the things that I would do to make sure that I check everything. So remember, in order for you to get rid of a fraction, you always multiply by the reciprocal, which is the opposite. So 1/9, the reciprocal of 1/9 is 9/1. If I had 7 per se, the reciprocal of 7 would be the opposite, 1/7, reciprocal. I have 4/9 for number 6. The reciprocal of that is 9/4. I have 2/3 on number 5. The reciprocal of that is 3 over 2, and that's how I will get rid of that. Let's do one more. We're going to go ahead and finish off with number 5, just to review. So I'm going to remove this and 2/3. So the reciprocal of 2/3. First, let me begin by dividing. So my reciprocal for 2/3 is, like I told you, 3 over 2. That's 3 over 2, and I'm going to multiply by 3 over 2. So this cancels out, and you have x left over on this side is equal. Now you have a fraction and a whole number, put it over 1, and then you just do your regular multiplication. 10 times 3, 30, multiply your numerators, and then you multiply your denominators. And 30 divided by 2 is going to give me 15. And there's your answer. And once again, you can go ahead and check your answer. X is equal to 15. There was no negative numbers here. If you check your answer here, that would be 2/3 times 15. And 15 times 2 is 30. 30 divided by 3 is 10. So it does check as well. And that was a review of one-step equations. Stay tuned for my two-step equation video.